Well, today was going to be a little simple day. I was just going to do some winter tires, but on my daughter's Jeep Patriot. But then she informed me that she has some kind of weird noise going on. And upon inspection on the rear brakes, this is what I'm looking at right here through the rotor. You guys can see that. So I think we got a stuck caliper because we got a big space over here and fit my fingernail in there, and it doesn't appear that that's working at all. So I picked up some rear brake rotors and some pads, and I think we're going to be bringing that in the garage. We'll get that up on the lift and check it out. Hey Google, close the garage door. All right, so we got her in the garage. We're gonna get her set up on the quick jacks, take some tires off, and take a look at those rear brakes. All right, we got her up on the jacks. I'm gonna guess that probably the back pad's probably finished. Here you can see a little bit better what we're looking at here. Yeah, that pad's not touching at all, so most definitely that caliper is seized. I'm anxious to get this off and take a look at the back of that brake rotor. This is a rusty mess. We're gonna have to spray her down. All right, so this is the really stupid design. This over here, these are the two main caliper bolts right here. And I can get this one off with the 14 mil, no problem. This one up here, you can't really reach it because the hose is in the way. So you have to use an open end like so. I've given it a couple of taps. I do not want to strip that pin there. And the hose is in the way, so you can't even get a box end on there or a socket. So that's really crazy. So I went to the main caliper mounting bolts in the back. Those are T55. And I gingerly just tried to move them because I wasn't going to go any further with this. I didn't want to get stuck here on a Sunday with no parts and breaking stuff. So turns out that those came loose, no problem at all with my T55 here. Couldn't get a socket in there, so I had to use this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch off the brake hose here. I'm going to loosen the brake hose over here. I'm going to remove those two caliper mounting bolts, or the bracket mounting bolts, because I can't get the actual slide bolts out. Take those two bolts off. I'm going to pull it off, and I'm going to spin the caliper off because you can't really spin this hose because the whole hose starts to spin. So this is, what were you thinking, Jeep, honestly? Like, why can't I get a socket on there, man? That's crazy. Like 2 seconds to move this hose over. I don't know. Anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to say this is incredible in the sense that I actually got this thing apart. So here's the main caliper. The piston moves nice and free. And here's the bracket right here. And the bracket goes like this. And the slide bolts go through like so. So here's one of the slide bolts after I cleaned it up. I had to put this in a vise. And I actually had to use a hammer and hammer this bracket off to get them off of those slide bolts because it was so tight. I should have picked up a caliper. Mind you, the caliper functions properly. It comes in and out nice and smooth. So just the slide bolts are really rusty. So I'm working on this. I might throw this guy in the sandblaster, give it a quick sand. So right now I am just cleaning it up with some Varsol. I'm going to get inside there, but these suckers were in there tight. So I'm not sure if they, I mean, they did rust a little bit, but I'm not sure if they were in wrong or no, they couldn't have been in wrong, but I don't know. So there's one cleaned up. There's one dirty. The boots are still good. I'm going to put this back together. The brake pads are in really good condition still. Still lots of material there. Probably 5 mil, 6 mil on the brake pads. The rotor, I haven't pulled that off yet. So as you saw, the face of the rotor is really bad. So I'm going to keep working on these, and I'll keep you guys updated in a second. All right, well, we got the caliper all back together. So now we have an actual sliding bracket, as you can see. And so what I did is I ended up sandblasted the main bracket here. Cleaned everything up, cleaned all my surfaces up, greased up the pins, took everything apart. And I took this opportunity while I had it out was to loosen off the bleeder screw. It was really easy to get off, just a little touch of heat and socket on there, and that came off no problem. So this is ready to go back on, but before we do that, we're going to have to go take that rotor off and take a look at that. I might need to replace it. So yeah, let's get onto that rotor, I suppose. You know, I really should have bought a caliper. Well, I got it back together and got the caliper back on. And I decided against removing the brake rotor simply because I don't want to break anything. And I have a brake rotor here, but it looks pretty seized on there. And I wasn't in the mood because that caliper took a couple hours already. So bled the caliper. I have a vacuum hand pump. That went really well. Bled that and cleaned up the surface of the rotor with a Scotch-Brite disc. And I think it turned out okay. Why don't you guys take a look? And I think it turned out all right. It is smooth. What you see in there is actually inside the rotor, but there's no lumps. Worst that can happen is I take it out for a ride and there's a serious vibration and I have to take it all apart again. So, but yeah, this went really well with the bleeding. Got that all back together, and hose went on no problem. Got that tightened up. Bleeding went fantastic. So I think we're in good shape. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the winter tires on, go for a ride, and see how she goes. Well, here I was thinking I was out of the woods. Got the back tire all back together. Everything's good there. So I'm up here, I'm cleaning the fronts. And then I take a look at the brake pads. The rotors look good, and there is no material left on this side, probably 1 mil. And then if we look over here, see if I can get a light in there for you guys. If we look in there, probably 2 or 3 mil left on the inside. So luckily I did pick up some front rotors and pads for this as well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the caliper off real quick, take a look at those pads, and if it needs pads, I got them. This was a winter tire swap, not a rear caliper and a front brake job. Alright, as you can see, there is some material left, not a whole lot. I'm going to say probably 2 mil. They are a little tapered on the edges there, so that's not a whole lot of brake material left. See right there. The inboard was a little bit thicker than the outboard for sure. So we're just going to clean this up quickly. I have some new pads. I think I have some new clips. We'll throw some new pads on it. The rotors are really nice. They feel really good. Might take this little ridge off the edges with just the little die grinder, but I think we're in good shape. No room to get a... What is it with Dodge and their spaces that they don't like? They don't like to give you space to work on stuff. I don't understand. right, so we just banged off the other side. That was real quick. Here's our other side. No surprises, just like the other one. Came apart really nice. Had to heat the rotor a little bit because I didn't hit it very hard with a hammer, but I didn't want to. Brake pads went in. Everything's nice and loose there for the caliper mounting bracket. Pins were really good shape. Everything came apart really nice. I'm super pleased. So now we just got to put these winter tires on. I got one winter tire left over there. I don't expect any surprises on that side, so let's hope. In case you guys are wondering, socket size on the front for the caliper mounting bracket, that would be an 18mm socket. And for the caliper slide bolts, that's a 14mm socket. Basically up front, that's all you need. And a hammer. Or a hatchet. But Pat would be mad if I used a hatchet. Who's Pat, you're asking yourself? He's the guy who gave me this hammer because he's tired of seeing me use a hatchet to remove brake pads. I don't understand what the problem is. This works well, but so does a hatchet. Shocking. No issues on this side. Everything went together nicely. Now, one thing we did notice, and this is because I changed the front brakes and I had to compress the actual brake calipers, is because I had filled the reservoir when I did the rear caliper. Now that I've compressed the fronts, you'll notice that this is really full. So I took the cap off and it came up because you're compressing the pistons and the calipers and you're pushing the fluid back up into the reservoir. So now we're going to have to bring this level down so that we're at the fill line, and I'm just going to use my suction tool for that. But once that's done, I think we're going to tie this up. I'm going to check the oil, check the coolant, torque the wheels, have to drop it down, torque the wheels, and then we're going to head outside with it. Well, this most definitely turned into something that I wasn't expecting today, but that's okay. At least I know that everything's back together. I'm really anxious to take it for a test drive and try that rear brake, see how that rotor works out. I think it's going to be fine. We'll find out soon enough once I get the vehicle on the ground and torque the wheels. So really appreciate you guys watching. If I continue past this section here, then we actually had problems. So you'll hear from me in a couple of seconds if it didn't go well. If it did go well and everything is fine, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you learned a little something. It wasn't really a step-by-step because things were just snowballing as I was recording, and sometimes you lose focus. But I really do appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys next time.